This is the Other 22 Hours podcast. Hey, and welcome to today's episode of the Other 22 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Shafer-Haiss.
And I'm your host, Michaela Anne. This is the second year of our podcast, and we're so happy to still be here. So thank you for being along for the ride or for just joining us if this is your first time.
Yeah, we are so fortunate to be nearing 50 episodes of this show, and we're keenly aware that we can't do this without you guys being here. So thank you so much. If we can have a simple ask for you, we've got like kind of a 3-tiered ask now. Different stages of engagement. The easiest would be just hit follow or subscribe on whatever platform you listen to. If you like what we do, it will let you know every week, every Wednesday when a new show is out. Tier number 2 would be to just tell a friend. If you have a favorite episode, maybe it's this one, maybe it's one that aired last year, just pass it on to somebody that doesn't know what we do. This show is for our community, from our community, and so the bigger the community, the more guests and ideas we can share back with you. And then if you're a big fan of this show and you want to help support it, we have a Patreon. There's a link in the show notes below us, or you can go to theother22hours.com and click on Patreon and get some behind the scenes access, some extra content. You'll find out the guests before we interview them, so you get a chance to have your questions answered by those guests and just generally interact more with what's going on here.
We're not music journalists. We're working musicians ourselves. So we're able to have, we like to think, even more honest peer-to-peer conversations about the reality of building a lifelong career in this music business and how to stay centered in our creativity and still honor all the things that make us whole, healthy human beings.
Yeah, and we've heard from a lot of people, from writers to painters to oncologists, that a lot of what we talk about here about creativity applies to them as well. And we are humbled by that. I think if you have tried to build a career around your art at all, you realize that there is a lot that is outside of your control. And so we like to focus on the things that are in our control, being our mindsets, our routines, our headspace. And to get there, we formulate this core question of the show that we never really ask outright, but that question is, what do you do to create sustainability in your life so that you can sustain your creativity? And we had the pleasure of asking that question of Devon Gilfillian today.
And Devon is an incredible singer and songwriter and performer. He has had a pretty wild career in a short amount of time. He has toured with everyone from Brothers Osborne, Grace Potter, to the legends Mavis Staples, Gladys Knight, and Michael McDonald. We didn't even ask him about that.
No, didn't even get there.
He's been on national TV, on CBS Saturday Morning, Colbert, Kimmel. But we've known him for a long time just around Nashville. I think the one time I shared a stage with Devon was on a city bus, which we also didn't get to.
Wow, I didn't even remember that.
Years ago, we did a weird promo thing on the We Go Nashville city buses where we weren't even moving. I think we were just a parked bus.
We were.
To promote public transportation, which we definitely feel strongly about.
Yeah.
We need more of it here.
Yeah. Like Michaela said, Devon has done a lot in a short time. In 2016, he released his first self-titled EP independently, and from there signed with Capitol Records and put his first full-length out on Capitol Records at the very opportune time of January 2020. And you can imagine what happened from there. All that excitement right into the pandemic. And so we get to talk with Devon about that experience, which is not too dissimilar from Katie Pruitt's experience that we talked with her last year, to releasing his new record this year on Fantasy Records, everything in between, all of that with his longtime buddy, who's also his drummer and his manager, who apparently they met while Devon was training him as a server at City Winery here in Nashville, and they've grown from there. And we talked about Devon's love of a morning routine, which I was psyched about, because if you listen to any of these episodes, I'm a big fan of that. Straight through talking about difficult things in your music and politics and current culture and the role of that in art.
We are so grateful to have had this time with Devon. And so without giving any more away, here's our conversation with Devon Gilfillian. just so you know, hopefully, because it's a snow week, our daughter is home this week. So she's in our vocal booth right now.
We just set her up with some blankets and a snack and an iPad in the vocal booth. So if you hear anything.
So hopefully we won't get interrupted, but that might happen. But she's got her Miss Rachel going on.
Congratulations, by the way. That's amazing.
How are you doing? How's your snow week going?
It is so chill. I love it. I'm from outside Philly, so I love the snow and I miss the snow. And we got 8 inches over here in Madison. This is the most snow I've ever seen in Nashville.
Same.
So I had a meatball sandwich actually for lunch. I made some meatballs on Sunday, and Megan, my lady, she made some carnitas. So we just been eating tacos and meatballs. We're gonna eat some spaghetti and meatballs tonight. I'm double down and I'm banging on meatballs today.
Amazing.
Meatball sandwich, then spaghetti and meatballs tonight. My lactose intolerance, I can do a little shaved parm on top, but that's as far as it gets. I gotta keep it. Can't go Alfredo on them yet anymore.
Where are you from outside of Philly?
I'm from a small town, Morton, Pennsylvania.
Bucks County, that area?
It's Delaware County, a little northwest of Philly. Yeah, Delco, as they call it. Are you familiar?
We lived in New York.
We lived in New York for a long time.
Okay.
One of my closest friends is from Bucks County. So I don't know much about Bucks County, but I've heard stories because he grew up there. And
I don't know how much Jonathan told you that the whole premise of this podcast is to talk about the things that we don't usually talk about, like the stuff we don't really post about on social media, not promoting our records or tours, trying to just have like real conversations about the reality of surviving the music industry and building a lifelong career and how you can like continually grow to stay centered in yourself and your creativity and take care of yourself. We're trying to have conversations mostly with people who've been in this at least a few album cycles. So not only had the taste of the good times, but have had some come downs as well.
How did you know? How did you know exactly where I was at in my life?
Even with people that we've had on that we know really well and have had intimate conversations with, when we come on here and have it, it's been so cool to be able to dig in even deeper. So we've been around each other a handful of times over the last several years, but I've been really interested in watching also how you talk about things publicly, important, heavier things that a lot of artists might feel like they need to shy away from, how you manage all that stuff, how it affects you personally, and then obviously, your career stuff. We're excited to have you.
I'm so excited. I'm just really excited to talk about all of this, and because God, it's so necessary. And I'm like, this is like therapy. It feels
it is
necessary.
For us too. It's just like our whole goal with this thing. We started it because everybody hit that point in the pandemic after the anxiety subsided a little bit, where it's like, oh, this is kind of nice. I have some space. I can do other things. It felt like kind of people's FOMO turned off when everybody realized that everybody was at home. Like, oh, I don't have to be in this race right now. And then I'm not sure if you experienced it, but like our circle and our crew, like what we saw is when things opened up, it was like letting go of a slingshot and everybody like just bounced like right back into it. So we were having these kind of conversations about like, this is hard. I'm not doing well. I don't know how to do this. And then everybody felt like they were the only ones experiencing that. And so our goal with this is, man, we're all in this together. Let's just share it. Let's be candid about our experiences and what we've found that helps us. And maybe, as the tide rises, so do all the ships, and we can share some info.
Aaron, I love it. I love it.
So we are also excited because I, from my internet sleuthing, discovered that you have a degree in psychology.
Look at, man, you do your homework, Michaela. Oh my God. No, it is true. It is true. I got my bachelor's in psychology, and I'm really glad that I did, and really has helped a lot. I think going to therapy is actually the thing that will help the most. And even having a bachelor's in psychology, like that didn't help as much as actually going to therapy. But it definitely gave me a guideline of how to be empathetic towards people and how so many people are coming from different walks of life and places and like mental illnesses. And so many people have mental illnesses that they don't know about. We have to be aware of that and how to look yourself in the mirror and be like, what's going on here? And so that has for sure helped me as a songwriter and a human.
I also read you didn't start doing therapy until recent years, though. Is that true?
It is. I started therapy like 2021, I feel like. I think I actually did a couple sessions in 2020. And before that, maybe in 2019, I had a session or two. Didn't stick. But 2021, I was like, all right, I need to like stay in therapy for at least 6 months. And I did that. And I am not in therapy right now, but I'm definitely like, hey,
yeah.
It's time. I need to, there's no like bells, alarms or anything going off or anything like that. But like, I know, and y'all know that you have to give yourself the tools before the hurricane hits. You got to know when to board up the windows and have all the stuff ready so that you're ready when the storm comes.
We are unabashedly big advocates of therapy.
I was really resistant for a long time. I've been really into like meditation and mindfulness and like kind of, I guess, like self-awareness. I say that as a joke. Being on this side, because I think speaking with a therapist or speaking with somebody else that's not your partner or not somebody close that can be a good mirror really helps your awareness expand. But I was really resistant to therapy for a long time and probably felt some stigma around it and all of that. And starting like 2017, I really like dove in and just like caught the bug. And I'm not in therapy currently, because I have a very like specific thing I want to, again, I'm using it like as a tool, but it's not a all the time thing for me. It's dip my toe in here on specifics, but it's been a massive help for me.
Incredible.
Yeah. Did you feel any resistance of, even with a psychology degree, of going into therapy yourself?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I feel like because I have a psychology degree, I was like, I kind of like know what they're going to tell me or whatever. And like, for the most part, 30% of that, of me that felt that way. 70% of me was like, dude, you don't know a damn thing. Come on now, like, get your ass in therapy. It's time to talk to somebody about all of this that's going on, because you know damn well that you got to face some real stuff.
Yeah, man, I can relate to that feeling so well. We both went to music school. So I feel that all the time. It's that idea of like Zen mind, beginner's mind, where it's like, man, I know that. The older I get, the more I go back to just learning basics, like ear training or just basic music theory or anything like that. Things that I would shake my nose at and be like, I paid a lot of money to learn that. I already know that. And man, am I wrong? It's just like humbling myself to be open to feedback that's basic and beneath me has been massive.
I feel like there's such a difference between knowing something intellectually and having information and practiced embodiment. So many things that I'm like, I know this, but I have to re-embody it constantly to keep it in practice, whether it's therapeutic practice or musical practices or writing practices. You don't just take in knowledge and then forever you have it. You have to like continue to hold it and align with it.
That is so real, so true. Especially I feel that as an artist, as a musician, waking up and I need to write, doing the artist way. I'm like, all right, gotta get my journals, my pages in, get the critic out of the way and get in that routine of practicing guitar and practicing getting an A and a B section of a song or whatever it may be. And yoga too, like you're saying, practicing mindfulness and embodying it. The routine to me is what saves my life as a musician, as an artist, building that time frame for yourself. I have the back of a 90-year-old, speaking of, to get into the physical. So I have to stretch for an hour every morning, no matter what. Physical therapy, and then I do like 20 minutes of yoga with Adrian. And it's great. I like chill, I get into my Zen mode, I'm getting into my flow, listen to the daily while I'm stretching or whatever, and like get into my day and coffee, juice. Got my juice going. And
is that green juice?
Yeah, it's a little apple, kale, carrot, cucumber, ginger.
Nice. Oh, delicious. I'm a big fan of morning routines and all of that, if we can get into the micro of it. So like you wake up and you stretch kind of first thing. Is that what it is? You start with the stretch and then go from there?
Start with the stretch. That's it. Otherwise, I'm walking like a penguin for the rest of the day. Like it's, I wish I could say that my body doesn't force me to do it, but it's my body's like, dude, you can't do this because if you don't stretch.
Yeah.
I'll have to get surgery if it comes down to it. If I, and there's mostly good days, but then a couple weeks ago, there was a day where I was like, yeah, nope, I'm not walking anywhere today.
Oh, that's tough.
I'm sorry. That sucks.
But it's all right. As long as I stay on top of it and stretch, I'll be golden.
Yeah. The morning pages aspect, when does that come into the routine?
Right after I stretch. I'll sit down and grab the pages, write down all the free thought, all the like, and after that, I'll write some intentions of the day, and then I'll get to the to-do list. And then I'm like, all right, it's all set out in front of me. And like, even in the pages, I'll visualize the day a little bit or the week or whatever, like dream. Mm-hmm. That to me is a great reflecting time that I didn't discover an artist way till, I don't know, 3 years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. Maybe it was 2020, actually. I think I was like, oh, this is amazing. But I haven't finished it. I'm still working through it. I'm still like in my week 4.
Yeah, that's awesome. How much is your morning routine affected when you're on tour?
Very, very affected. You know how it is on tour. Every day is a different day. And I've been lucky that I have a team of people that just bust their ass on the road with me. And they keep a really healthy environment, and everybody knows how to communicate with each other. That is smooth, and that to me is number one. And then we do the best that we can to find the fight for the sleep. We're in a van, a Sprinter most of the time. You know, we had a bus for like 2 weeks. That was actually not as fun as we thought it would be.
Yeah. That's what a lot of people say.
Because we got the last bus on the lot, and like it got turned away by, a homie that we went to a show, and we did a show with, I won't even say who it was, but she was like, oh, we just had the worst bus experience. And we're like, oh no. And they're like, yeah, don't go with this company. And we're like, that's the one that we're going with.
Oh no.
And we literally got her bus that she turned away. And it was a leaky toilet and rocky road. It was rough, but I'll take the Sprinter over that. I'll take Sprinter in hotels any day. I think that, to me, I'd still, no matter what, I still find that hour and a half, maybe even like a couple hours, really. Like I try to give myself my stretch time and breakfast time. That is pretty essential for me as a human, to be not a mean person. That's how I find my grounding is, all right, I feel good physically, my stretch, I'm in my zen, and I'm fed. I have the fuel, the energy for the day, so that my brain is ready to react the right way to everything that's going to be bouncing at me. And then singing my heart and soul out that night, that's kind of the thing that you're saving up your energy for the entire time and preparing for. And basically a trucker that is driving to each city with a load of instruments, a lot of instruments and a lot of other things.
Merchandise.
And like a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And that you have to set up and knock down every day. And then you sing and make music on top of that for 90 minutes.
The shortest amount of time.
90 minutes if you're lucky. Boom. Yep. Shake hands and sign some stuff and hopefully sell a little merch and get your ass to the hotel for some sleep.
Yeah, rinse and repeat. Yep.
I know. It's interesting, the mention of the bus, because I feel like a lot of these conversations are also recognizing what our former ideas of markers of success and how they change. And we had the Milk Carton Kids on, and I remember listening to an interview with them from years ago where they were like, once we get on a bus, things will be a lot better. And then when they were with us, or maybe it was when I was touring with them a couple of years ago, they were like in a rented SUV, and they were like, don't ever get on a bus.
Yeah. They were in like a
fuck
Ford.
The bus.
Yeah, they were in like a Ford Expedition, whatever the biggest Ford SUV was, with their merch person and their sound guy. No tour manager, all of that. Their manager would advance everything ahead of time and send them like an old school like tour book. And they just go. And it was so lean.
Wow.
But I think that's the thing is like, I still kind of have to check myself of, when I was in my 20s and decided this is what I really wanted to do, I thought by this age I would be on a bus. I'd have all my friends in my band. I'd have nannies. I'd have, Now I'm like, would I even want that? I don't know, because that's a massive machine that you have then the pressure to keep going, and you don't get to really just follow your whim of like, maybe I want to take a year off, or maybe I want to write a novel. Like there's a whole load of other things once you have that level that I feel like there's a shift of, maybe the major record deal, the tour bus, the arenas, maybe that's actually not the dream. Have any of those shifts happened for you over the years?
Oh, wow. What a statement and like question. The best question is what kind of machine do you want to build? And also, it's so hard to maintain that machine, whatever machine you build. Like, how are you going to maintain it and keep making music with the people that you love and pay everybody a wage that they can live on and then expect them to be there for you when you need them in rehearsal and all, it's like, where's that balance of maintaining that thing? And the dream is still there, of course, to get to a place where I'm performing my record in big rooms. And who knows? I don't personally need to be playing in giant stadiums for the rest of my life. That's a crazy machine. That is ginormous. To me, I like went out on the road with My Morning Jacket and I was like, wow, that is a fan base that has latched on from early on and then grew and grew organically in a way that Jim James and those guys, they still love what they do and they still rock. And that, to me, I grew up loving Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and rock and roll and tapping into that inner child. And to me, I don't care if I'm playing in stadiums necessarily. I just want to make enough money that I get to pay my homies enough that they can have a good time, not worry about the bills, and keep making art that kicks ass and makes people feel good and pushes the dial a little bit and makes people think and pushes the cultural dial even maybe, And realistically, the only way to do that is to make a lot of money if you want to pay your buddies. Right now, I'm like in that place. Right now, I'm like, oh shit, that's okay. How do you fucking do that? Like, that's the part of it that you can't expect it right away, like all the time. As an artist, you have to be like, all right, how do I scale back and how do I scale up? And I think that is something that I started out playing acoustic guitar in bars, 4-hour sets, and did that for 4 or 5 years before I started even playing with a band. So I think that it's important to know how to do it by yourself and do it lean and mean. And then when you got the gas money and the big gas money with the big gas tank, then hey, maybe you can throw it in a couple big Ford Excursions,
Yeah. I think that's something that I've gleaned from people that I've worked with and then also conversations on here is once that machine gets to a certain point, you can't avoid the fact that you are running a business, right? And so inevitably with that business, I think our assumption is that like, oh, if you're on that level, like you're cruising. And it's not that. It's just as rocky. If you're selling out stadiums, if all of a sudden you like half sell out a stadium, you feel horrible. You know what I mean? Even though you're still selling 60,000 tickets. And so you have to be at this spot where there's that shock absorber. Your band, your crew, everybody you're employing, their salary stays the same. And you're the one that's covering that risk and navigating that. There's a lot of foundation building to be able to get to that point. I think it's untalked about.
Income increases, but expenses increase. So it can feel the same in some ways as when you're making less, but running on a leaner machine. But yeah, like you said, of having that versatility though, of being able to go out solo, that's like a huge amount of freedom. I've learned in recent years, I wanted to have a band and I was like going into so much debt, taking out a band on tour every time, just losing money. And I was very like self-conscious about playing solo because I'm just a fine acoustic rhythm guitar player. And in recent years, I've really focused on like, oh, well, what is my strength? My strength is singing and telling stories. So that's going to make up for the fact that I can't play a lead guitar part. So I'm going to do what I do. And then I have the freedom to go out on tour and play solo and bring my family instead of a lead guitar player or whatever. And that's designing what is best for my life. And then when I have a bigger paycheck for festivals or whatever, then I can take the band. But yeah, having that versatility, whatever it is, like you said, being able to be flexible to do that and go in the way that is the most sustainable for you, I think is really important because we can easily be like, no, but I need to lose all this money to give this impression. And it looks cool, but now I'm stressed the fuck out because I've got so much debt.
Goodness Lord, it's so real. And I love that, Michaela, that you're reshaping the way that touring looks in a conventional family, with a family. And I think that's important too, and making that feel healthier.
We have a lot of people that comment gratitude for us talking about like how this happens with a family and all that. And I feel the need to just point out like this is also just a phase. This is what works right now for our family. It will be different next year, just like it was different last year. And that applies to people that don't have a family too. Everything is a phase. I mentioned being into mindfulness, and one way that I've been meditating recently is through using Sam Harris's app. Sam Harris has a podcast. I think he has a degree in like neuroscience or something. But
I've heard of him. Yes, definitely heard of Sam Harris.
Yeah, he's a heady dude, but he approaches meditation like from a scientific angle rather than Eastern. So it's a lot about like consciousness and what is consciousness.
Very
but he was
cool.
talking the other day about struggle and uncomfortable feelings. And he's like, every bit of stress, every bit of anxiety, every period of anger, every period of joy that you've ever felt has come and gone. Nothing is permanent. It all is transient. On both ends of the coin, there's this actual Buddhist, I guess it's like a Zen koan kind of thing, where an emperor or something summoned two Buddhist monks to him. And he's like, I want something that makes me sad when I'm happy and something that makes me happy when I'm sad. And so they went and they sat and they meditated on it for however long. They came back and they're like, the answer is this too shall pass. And it's just thinking that if you're happy, this isn't going to last, so enjoy it. And if you're sad, this will pass. It'll be okay. Everything's transient, basically, is what I'm getting to.
Yeah, man. I've heard that this too shall pass. And I needed that.
Well, and I think also shifting the way that we tour because we have a family is by necessity. But I hope talking about that then helps empower other people to think about, well, could I design the way that I tour to fit what fits for me, rather than I think a lot of us get into this career and like we just want to try and build a career. So we'll do like whatever anybody tells us to do and then be like, wait, I'm exhausted or I'm like an anxious wreck or whatever it is. I'm always questioning now, like, why do we have to do it this way? Why do we have to do a 6-week straight nationwide tour? Why can't we break it up into smaller bits? How does that affect the booking agent? They're just in their office booking it a week apart rather than back to back. And I was like, why can't we like be rethinking how to play these shows and build this career of ours based on what works for us?
That is a great question. Honestly, and I need to call my agent right now. Buster, what's going on? Yeah, listen, we're doing 3 nights in each city at small, tiny little clubs. All right, 150 cap.
Dude, the band has been one of my favorite bands forever. And like before they were touring with Dylan and all that, you know, when it was like Levon and the Hawks, they split off from Ronnie Hawkins. They were traveling in a station wagon. And they'd play 7 nights in a town and then go 2 hours down the street and play 7 nights in that town. Maybe the first night is a little slow, but by the end of the week, people are like, oh man, Levon and the Hawks are in town. We got to go see them. It's like, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
I mean, is it too expensive to just keep your whole band in town for a week? I think maybe that's what it is. Just finding a place to stay.
But if you're getting hotels like every night in different towns and driving, I don't know. I feel like maybe the concern is if you're trying to sell tickets that you can't get people out night after night and you're not doing like a bar gig. That's probably like a bar band type thing.
Yeah. I mean, at this rate, Jason Isbell is about to announce like 50 days in a row at the Ryman. Jason Isbell presents February at the Ryman.
I really think you could totally do it like a 3-nighter in each town. That seems chill. And then you do 4 cities and that's it. Next month or 2 months later, you do it again. Oh man, that would be
We
nice.
need some inventive thinking like this. Do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about your journey with your record deals of signing to Capitol and what that experience was? Because that was early on, right?
It was early. It was 2017 in October that I signed with Capitol. I recorded my first EP in 2016 and released it in May of 2016. From there, at that point, started playing out in town a bunch in Nashville and trying to build a little buzz. The first time people started paying attention label-wise was actually through a Craigslist gig that I did.
Whoa, our heads were synchronized in that.
So randomly, I did this Craigslist ad. They needed a singer, and I sang on this blues song for this guy. Tim Hinkle is his name. He's this British cat who played keys on like all this stuff for like The Who, The Doors, and like, okay, Tim, sure, whatever, man. As he's telling me all this stuff, just name dropping, and I'm like, cool. And a year later, he calls me and says, after I released my EPs, Devon, you got to come to House of Blues and meet T-Bone Burnett. And I'm like, huh, what? And I'll be honest, and I'm embarrassed, I actually didn't know who T-Bone Burnett was at this point. And I looked him up and I was like, oh shit, like, Oh Brother We're Out There and Raising Sand. And I was like, oh God, this guy's amazing. And met him and talked to him, and he came out to some gigs. Then Atlantic started coming out, and then actually Mark Abramowitz, who I was working with, he was at Sony at the time, he connected me with Chris York from Capitol, and he was like, yo, what's up, Devin? We love what you're doing. And honestly, to this day, I'm so grateful for everything that Capitol did. It's the waves now after record, I guess this is technically 3, but my second original after that, I feel like now I'm just landing after doing the headlining tour for LP2. I now have a grasp of, like you said, a couple of record cycles and what they look like. Because my first album cycle was January 2020, and the pandemic was like,
yep.
And then Capitol dropped me June of 2021, July of 2021, something like that. The pandemic definitely tanked all the juice that was supposed to
be there.
How have you emotionally grappled with that?
I feel like I emotionally grappled with it very quickly because I was like, we're all here. We're all in this boat together. The only ones that are really prospering right now are Bezos and all the billionaires, and hopefully the world sees that. This country sees that and says there's something weird going on. You know, to me, it was a moment in time to pay attention to what was bigger and what was happening. And it's so funny getting to this election now, not to get deep into politics or anything, but it feels like there's a little less on the line, or we don't care as much. Then it felt like life or death, and now it feels like a little life or death, but like we're still like, God.
Yeah.
We still got to vote for our 85-year-old, you know? And like, it's important, but also I'm like, damn, like we're still struggling. We're still like trying to like figure out how to like navigate this, everything that's happening. Anyway, sorry, I went far off.
You can get into that all you want.
Yeah. We're there with you.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things is like that stuff affects us personally. I always think of the personal as political, the political as personal. So this idea that we shouldn't talk about it, or that it's like in some separate section, is just not actually how most people exist. There is a percentage of the population who could probably say like, well, my life isn't as affected. But then there are a lot of us who personally feel directly, deeply impacted by what is happening in politics. Namely, if you're not a straight white man. Sorry, Aaron, but I know you're impacted by a lot of things too. Like that's not even true that he's not impacted just because he's a straight white guy.
Yeah,
you know, for all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that affects our ability to create what we create as artists. It affects our livelihood and our career. So it's a part of all of it. So you're welcome to talk about whatever you want.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in a safe place. And you're 100% right. Like politics affect our lives and affect me personally for sure. And if it's affecting us as a human and affecting us personally as artists, our art is a mirror of our human existence, and that hopefully bounces off of everyone else. And so that was for sure weighing me down that year in 2020 and making me realize what is important as an artist. What do I say? And how do I use my voice and my platform? What is the point of being an artist in general if I'm not going to say something or do something with the art? And of course, you don't want to become, listen, U2's great and everything. You don't want to go full Bono on them 100%, you know, let Bono be Bono. But sometimes you need to. I think that's important. And it woke me up in a lot of ways, for sure.
That's a really interesting thing to say. You don't want to go full Bono on them, because I feel like, in my judgment, with a lot of what's going on in American culture these days, is it's very all or nothing on a lot of different things. It's either like, no, read every book or we're going to ban the dictionary. And people think like artists, oh, it's like you either go full Bono or you just shut up and sing like they told the Dixie Chicks. And it's like, no, man, I think we can just be normal about it and talk about it. Be like, no, this is part of our lives and this really affects me, so I'm going to sing about it and this is part of my art. You don't need to make it your entire cause, because I think that there's a lot going on for everybody, whether somebody wants to admit it or not, no matter where you are on the spectrum. And so I think it's just like a self-preservation to block out when it's a fire hose of whatever kind of information. If this is just part of the conversation as it is, as it should be, I think there's a way to normalize this. Normalize calling out the fact that like things aren't normal right now, or we're struggling to find what the new normal is, and we're not there yet. We don't have 2 feet on the ground just yet.
Absolutely. And I think that one way to normalize it is by making that conversation calm and empathetic, and have open ears and open hearts as you're talking about it, making it a safe place first, because I think that people are just scared that it's going to turn into a boxing match. And nobody wants to jump into a boxing match, really. But it's hard because it's delicate, personal things. It's things that affect generations of people and in our heart and our soul. And it's religious things, too, with people, you know, and that's involved. And it's literal building blocks of people's existence that you're trying to wiggle and shake and go like, this is not right, this block down here. And then they're like, well, I got like 20 blocks on top of that. Then I gotta like, now I gotta like move, and now I gotta figure out how to move over here. And so like, we have to kind of like, this top block here, maybe it belongs over here. And I think if we thought of it in that way, like the conversation could be easier, but that's a lot. You know, it's a lot to ask of everybody. And you have to have those conversations with the right people, and only the important people.
Yeah. I think a lot about artists' role and the choice to communicate values through the actual music, and or communicating values through like platforms or whatever. They're 2 different things. With your music, it seems like you're progressively speaking more through your songs as well, with a direct message, which is, I think, challenging to do and incredible when you can, because I think that is how you connect to somebody's empathy. When someone can connect to music and then maybe like start paying attention to the lyrics. But I've been thinking about this a long time, because my thesis in college was about the 1960s social movements and how they were represented in popular music, and compared to like the 2010s, and if there was any evidence of what was going on in the world in our popular music. And there just was not, even though the Iraq War was happening and 9/11. And I wrote a 70-page thesis about why this was, but I still think about it in today's world. Like your song, for instance, I'm Gonna Love You Anyway. As I was researching you, I wrote down this quote that I remembered from Nina Simone, where she said, an artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice, but I choose to reflect the times and situations in which I find myself. That's her mission statement as an artist. Not all of us believe that or feel comfortable or feel like we have the capability or ability to do that. Do you want to share and expand a little more on your feelings on that?
I love that quote. I think that Nina is a great example of someone that grew up in that era of having no choice but to fight for her rights. And it's so funny how when you listen to music back then and you listen to music in, like you said, the 2010s, you don't hear that in the times. And I think that we're disconnected right now from everything, from the systemic shit that has just been happening under our nose the whole time. And I don't know when it's going to break. But all that to say, I think that it is an artist's duty to reflect what is happening inside of themselves. And every artist has different powers, I do believe. And some artists, they're not tapping into the times and to the culture and to what everything that's happening around them. That's fine. I'm not really interested in that personally. Sometimes I think the artists that are tapped into themselves, that are sharing their story and their songs and their pain that they're going through, whether that's pain that is directly connected to what's happening in the world, those artists usually are the ones that are tapped into what's happening into the world and to me. And those are the ones that I look up to and are inspired by. And so for me, I do side with Nina in a way. I think that some artists, their power is tapping into an emotional place that maybe doesn't talk about everything that's happening in the world. They sing beautiful songs, and that's great. And that makes people forget about the shit that's happening in the world. And that's also a power that's beautiful. But if we're just living in this era where silence is killing everybody. if you can't say anything at some point, then what do you stand for? I think as a human, you got to stand for something. And as a Black artist especially, I've seen how music can be a weapon in good ways, in bad ways, but in mostly amazing ways, in beautiful ways, that Nina used it and the Staples singers used it in so many. It's a power that can be wielded. And I think that to find the full capability of that power, full potential of that power, you have to tap into the times.
Do you ever find yourself wishing you were seeing more artists do that?
Absolutely. I get stuck in my little things that I listen to, and it's funny, I was like listening, it's like my replay of 2023 on Apple Music, and it was like this almost the same as my replay in 2022. I was like, oh shit, I need to listen to new stuff.
Was it also older music? Yeah.
It was like, it's like Radiohead and some older stuff. It's mostly like early 2000s or like, shit like that. Or like, so I won't say that I'm fully aware of everyone that's saying anything and everything, but I think that it's hard that we live in this world where the art that's getting rewarded right now is what's going viral and what's going viral on TikTok. And hopefully people can make Fighting the Power go viral over and over again, and hopefully that's the key. Maybe that's why Trump's scared of TikTok, because he knows that everybody can unite on it and erase his ass. But anyway.
God. Yeah. I genuinely think people are like exhausted. We're both very engaged with stuff, and I feel like more than ever, I'm like, I just can't take in.
Because we fought it.
Yeah.
Twice already. Now we got to fight it a third time. And our boxer is Rocky IX right now, Like, It's like, are you sure you're good to get in the ring? Are you positive?
He still makes it up the stairs at the public library, but it's one of those chairs on the monorail thing that like lifts you to the top. It's like, well, you're there. You're at the top, but...
Yeah. It's
Good
rough.
Lord. Like, Michelle, take over. Like, come
please.
Oh my God. That would be a dream. She'll never do it.
She wouldn't put her family through that again.
She's my favorite person. I had one last question before we wrap up. Because one of the things we also talk about on this is building our teams, getting thrown into the major label arena and all that stuff. Your manager has been your buddy and bandmate.
Yes.
And I love that. I've had the same manager for like 10 years and we're about the same age, and like never have I thought, I could go try and get on like some major management company. And I'm curious about people who stick with, especially when they're then faced with big opportunities, that if there's ever any pressure, like, maybe you need a big time manager to handle all this stuff, and what that relationship is like with you and Jonathan, if you feel comfortable talking about it.
I'm so comfortable, and I love, I'm so lucky, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, I met John when I was working at City Winery. I trained him as a server his first day, and like we went up to a table, these older women, and I was like, you get 2 servers for the price of 1 today, and they're like, y'all are like Batman and Robin over here. and like that, from that point on, like we were like homies, and just he was inspiring to me, and was running a music festival in his college town that he started, and drumming, and really wasn't a manager. He was just a homie that wanted to help me in my music career, and he became my roommate. I moved in with him. He was like, rent's $275 a month. And I was like, in East Nashville on Porter Road.
Wow.
That does not exist anymore.
Stupid. I was like, yes, I'll be there tomorrow. Like, the universe brought us together, and John helped me produce my EP, and we were meeting up with managers, and we were like, this is my producer, blah, blah, blah. And then we didn't get a manager. We met up with Jeff Colvin, and we're like, hey, like, this is not my manager, but he's helping me with that kind of stuff right now. And like, so like, eventually he just became my manager, but he was doing things that no managers would do. Managers just aren't like as hands-on as he is, and not in an encroaching, weird like way, in like such a supportive role. And I know that no other manager could do what John does for me. We also I work with Paul Steele, who's at Triple Eight Management. And John's at Triple Eight. So like, we do have the company there, like, for help. They're awesome. They're amazing.
John joined the bigger company, right?
John joined the company after. And if I'm with John, wherever John goes, I'm with John, and I feel very lucky. And Buster Phillips was the next teammate. He's my agent, and he's been there from the beginning since 2016 too. And I feel like those are the two players you need in the beginning for all right, what's the next two chess pieces?
Yeah, it's really important to have those people in place who are loyal and willing to go through all the ups and downs with you rather than the situations of well, this isn't working out right now, so I'm moving on, which we all know happens a lot in this business.
Yeah, finding people that can endure what is perceived as a failure in the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we say it a lot on here, but to me, what defines something as a failure is your response to it. If Capitol had called you and John and been like, man, we're done, we're cutting ties, and your guys are like, bummer, and you hung everything up and never made another record again, that'd be a failure, but you responded to it and love you anyways. Fucking killer record. You made a great record. You hit the road. You got to determine that maybe a bus isn't the best thing.
Or at least right now.
For now.
For now, right.
But you guys responded to it together. You and John and Buster, and it's that's cool. We were talking earlier about how Michaela's kind of carved out what works for her right now, and it seems like you have carved out what works for you.
Still figuring it out over here. And,
every day.
Yeah. And knowing, I think one of the biggest things in this career is knowing that things that seem like an ending or that are objectively an ending of something doesn't mean the end. It just means that's a disappointing end to this thing, and I will keep going. I for sure have been is it over for me because this person didn't work out? And it's no, it's not.
No, it's like we were just talking about yesterday. It's the death card. When you see that card, you're like, oh shit, what's going on? And it could be a good thing. It's the beginning of something new. It's the next chapter. It's the rebirth. It's something that needs to die. You need to grow, and it's a good thing.
The biggest thing to remember, and that's why I love these conversations and my friends that are all on this career path. Anytime I get scared, I'm remember when they parted ways with their label or manager or agent or lost this tour or whatever it was and how devastated they were. And then remember what came next, this even better thing or this beautiful period of growth or whatever it is. So keeping that in mind, I think, is the key. Oh, Gigi, we're at the end.
Hey, Gigi.
Devon says hi.
Yeah, speaking of endings, I think this is one thing that does need to end, but we keep looking at the screen above us because we have a whole bunch of other things we want to talk to you about. So we'll have to have another one of these conversations, whether it's recorded or not. I got a lot more questions I want to ask you. So
let's have a drink and do it.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for taking your time and giving it to us today for an hour.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me this free therapy session. I appreciate it.
Oh, we'll send the invoice. Don't worry about it.
We'll send it to John.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, man.
Take it easy.
See ya. Hey, real quick before we wrap up today's episode, it takes a lot to produce even a small show like ours, so if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider taking a minute to check out our Patreon. There's a lot happening over there, all with the intent of growing our community and offering you more resources to navigate a career based on your art more sustainably. You can learn more at the link in the show notes below. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll catch you next time on the Other 22 Hours podcast.